What is going on, guys? Khamzat Chimaev just beat Dricus Du Plessis in dominant fashion. I'm not going to lie, he's not losing the belt anytime soon. He's probably not losing a mixed martial arts fight for his entire career. I could see this man retiring as champion, guys. I want to go ahead and make this clear. I made a shorts video. I made a TikTok talking about if you think this fight was boring, this main event between DDP and Khamzat Chimaev, if you think it was boring, you don't know ball, guys. I'm going to go ahead and take that back, okay? I was frustrated. I was so mad at the fact that everybody online was saying Khamzat Chimaev is no longer scary. All he's going to do is hug you for 25 minutes. He has no finishing potential. All of these BS narratives, which I understand, guys. I'm going to take it back. If you thought the fight was boring, that's valid, okay? I was just overly trying to push the fact that I thought it was entertaining because Khamzat Chimaev dominated and Dricus Du Plessis had zero answer for him. So I was trying to rewrite the narrative to an extreme. And I'm sorry, I understand if you think it was boring. I don't think it was boring because Khamzat Chimaev absolutely dominated and it was not even close. That's what made it entertaining. I want to go ahead and get that off my chest, but let's go ahead and talk about it. Dricus Du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev, man. Look, guys, I'm not even a Khamzat super fan, but I'm so glad this fight went all 5 rounds. Obviously, I would have liked to see Chimaev, land more ground and pound, shoot some more submission attempts, really try to push the action. But at the same time, when you're dominating a strong guy who has a lot of heart like DDP, do you really want to, rush for a submission and potentially let Dricus back up to his feet? Probably not, okay? I don't hate Khamzat Chimaev for the way that he fought in this fight. I understand it, but at the same time, I do think he could have been more active. This man got to the crucifix position and held it for what? Over 5 minutes in the fight. I think he got Dricus Du Plessis in the crucifix 3 different times. And he did not get to land much ground and pound. I understand he landed these little bitty punches, but I would have loved to see Khamzat Chimaev really open up and create some space and drop down some elbows from the crucifix position. But I understand at the same time that creating space like that opens up an opportunity for Dricus Du Plessis to potentially escape. But I understand Khamzat Chimaev was bullying him. If he wanted Dricus Du Plessis down or back down to the mat, he could have done it, and he did do that. But, guys, I'm so impressed by Khamzat Chimaev's performance. Nobody is beating him at 185, okay? Nasruddin Imavov, Kyle Baralho, they're going to be fighting. Probably the winner of that is going to fight Khamzat. Also, if you stick around, we're going to talk about fights to make after the event. But, oh my goodness, guys. And shout out to Dricus Du Plessis. This man had no quit in him like we knew. But Dricus Du Plessis had nothing. He had no answer for Khamzat Chimaev. Could not get back up to his feet. Landed a couple shots on the feet for the short amount of time that the fight was standing. But man, Dricus' corner didn't know what to tell him, and I don't blame him. What do you tell Dricus? He's getting taken down at will. How many takedowns did Chimaev land? 12. What do you tell him? What do you tell him? You just got crucifixed for 10 minutes. What do you tell Dricus Du Plessis? There's nothing. There's nothing that he could have done. Even DDP's coach was saying he does not want any part of a Khamzat Chimaev rematch right now, which I don't think they're going to make that fight. I don't see how you could with it being such a one-sided fight. Maybe sometime in the future, but yeah, I don't blame him. He's got to get back in the gym. And the thing is, everybody online is just saying, once Khamzat Chimaev runs into somebody with good takedown defense, bro, he's done. Dricus Du Plessis does have good takedown defense. Robert Whitaker, good takedown defense. Khamzat Chimaev is just special. But what a performance from Boers, man. Oh my gosh. Super impressive, guys. Moving on to the co-main event, Lerone Murphy just got a knockout in the Big 2-5, man. Aaron Pico, another Bellator guy going down, but this one was different, I will say. Aaron Pico was not stuck in the mud like Patricio Pitbull or Patchy Mix. He was dominating. I'm not going to say dominating, but he was winning the fight. He was pushing the pace. He was up in the face of Lerone Murphy. Even landed 2 takedowns, landed some good, vicious body shots. The boxing looked good. He was just overly aggressive and got caught with a beautiful spinning elbow by Lerone Murphy, bro. Beautiful. Like, we've seen Pico get caught before in a similar way, not in terms of spinning elbow, but being overly aggressive. But besides that, he looked good. I think Aaron Pico is legit. He looked better than Patchy Mix, looked better than Pitbull. I think this was just too much for a UFC debut to come in and fight Lerone Murphy, who's undefeated, coming off wins over Dan Ige and Josh Emmett. Pico should have fought somebody like Dan Ige, not a Lerone Murphy-esque fighter, because if Pico would have beat Murphy, I promise you guys, Pico would have been fighting Volkanovski in December, and that's just too much to ask. for this man who's already had tremendous pressure on him in his entire mixed martial arts career to come over to the UFC. Obviously, going to be nerves there. To make your UFC debut against Lerone Murphy in a potential #1 contenders fight is too much, bro. Lerone Murphy got it done with a beautiful spinning elbow. Shout out to Lerone, bro. And moving on, Jeff Neal versus Carlos Prates. I was expecting it to be a barn burner, and it was. It was very entertaining for as long as it lasted. Only lasted 4 minutes and 59 seconds until Carlos Prates unleashed a spinning elbow of his own. Guys, what is going on? What is in the air? 2 back-to-back first-round spinning elbow, not just knockouts, but cold KOs. I hope Jeff Neal and Aaron Pico are doing okay. Surely they got transported to the hospital, but Carlos Prates looked sharp, man. We predicted it. We almost had a clean sweep on the card if it wasn't for Asakura, but it's all good. Prates looked phenomenal. I think Prates is that good of a fighter. I think Ian Gary's also just a great fighter. People thought he was a fraud because Ian Gary beat him. Ian Gary, let's not forget about Ian Gary, man. He has a win over Carlos Prates and Michael Venom Page, both guys who are doing very well in the UFC. These wins have both aged beautifully. Moving on to MVP and Cannoneer. Pretty much exactly what I thought was going to happen, guys. You can look at my breakdown. You can look at my predictions. MVP by decision. I thought this was my most confident pick because I thought MVP was going to do exactly what he did. You know, land a few significant strikes per round. I think he's going to be too fast for Jared Cannonier, and he was. Jared Cannonier is a powerful, explosive athlete, but MVP is just, he's too fast. He's got that welterweight skill coming up to 185, and Cannonier's an old man. Nobody can stand with MVP. You have to take him down. And like I said, I thought Cannoneer was going to clinch with MVP. I thought it was going to be hard for him to get MVP down because Cannoneer doesn't shoot traditional double legs. He likes to clinch you up against the cage and then shoot from there and work on a takedown. And that just doesn't work. It doesn't work against MVP. However, Michael Venom Page did get taken down in the final round, but it was because he got overly aggressive and slipped, and Cannoneer jumped on him and controlled him for like 5 minutes. It was the very start of the round. Cannoneer controlled him. Luckily, he didn't get off vicious ground and pound, which would have potentially resulted in a 10-8 and would have been a draw. I'm happy for that, but MVP made a silly little mistake. Cannoneer got on top. But anyway, MVP, besides that, really controlled the pace of the fight like we expected. But moving on to Asakura, man. Another guy who's not from Bellator, but from Ryzen, has not panned out. Look, first of all, he got a matchup with Alexandre Pantoja in his debut. You cannot hang your head about a submission loss to the best grappler in the division in Pantoja. But he came back against Tim Elliott, who has not fought in a year and a half, who's a crafty vet, I will say. But if you're this hyped up, you cannot be losing to Tim Elliott, who was actually a bad matchup for Asakura. But man, this was a step down in competition. Think about how much better Pantoja is than Tim Elliott. This was such a step down in competition. I do wish they would have given Asakura a striker, but you cannot be losing to Tim Elliott in the Big 2-5 if you're a real challenger to the title. You just can't. Okay, I'm sorry. You got to improve your takedown defense. You got to work on getting back up to your feet as well, which he did before. But Tim Elliott, man, the thing was crazy about this is I tried to place Tim Elliott by submission right before the fight just because I thought the value was great at plus 900 because we've seen Asakura get submitted before. Tim Elliott's crafty, great wrestling, and it said the bet did not go through. It didn't go through because I tried to place it as they were walking out to the fights. But anyway, it is what it is. Not mad about that, but I'm mad that Asakura is not what we expected him to be. But also, guys, what I am upset about is Chase Hooper. Chase Hooper got chinned bad. 458 in round 1. It broke my heart, guys. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into fights to make after UFC 319, starting off with the champion, the newly crowned champion, Khamzat Chimaev. This is what I think should happen, okay? Obviously, like we talked about earlier, Caio Borralho versus Nasruddin Imavov is taking place in September at the Paris card. I think if Khamzat Chimaev is serious about wanting to fight in Abu Dhabi in October, I think you ask Nasruddin Imavov, do you want to fight in Abu Dhabi for the title? And if he says no, I think you offer the fight to his opponent, Caio Borralho. But if Imavov says no, that's a bad look, bro. If he wants to stay on the Paris card, I would slide in either Reina the Riddler or Anthony Fluffy Hernandez into that spot to fight Imavov, to fight Caio. Whatever happens, either way, you can save the event. Caio can still fight Hernandez or the Riddler if Imavov ends up fighting Khamzat Chimaev. But it's not like you're going to ruin the card because you also have Mauricio Rufy versus Benoit Saint Denis as the co-main on the Paris card. But I think this is what you do. If Khamzat does want to return as soon as October, then I think you pull off either Imavov or Caio. I think they should ask Nasruddin Imavov first since he's the number one contender. But if Khamzat does rest a little bit and doesn't return until maybe next year, I say you do Khamzat Chimaev versus the winner of Nasruddin Imavov and Caio Borralho because it's basically a number one contenders fight. But that's what I think. I think it makes the most sense. I think you can sell this fight. No matter who Khamzat Chimaev's fighting, I want him to get booked soon. I want him to go back to the activity that he was at when he first joined the UFC. And I want him to prove all the doubters wrong and show that he's not a boring fighter. He just had a semi-boring performance. But Khamzat versus Nasruddin Imavov, I think it's a good fight, man. Moving on. Guys, I'm excited for this one, okay? Moving on to Dricus Du Plessis. Listen. Y'all are going to see this and think that it doesn't make sense. Right. It does not make too much sense. But Dricus Du Plessis is at a point where he just lost the title. Is he going to fight in a number one contenders fight? Probably not because he got dominated against Chimaev. So, like, is he one win away from fighting for the title again? Probably not. I think you do. Africa versus Africa. Dricus Du Plessis versus Kamaru Usman. Now, I get Kamaru Usman's ranked like number 5 in the welterweight division. I think you could sell this fight, first of all, as a great co-main event spot or a fight night headliner, whatever you want to do. But Kamaru Usman's coming off a big win against Joaquin Buckley. He said in the past that he wants to fight Dricus Du Plessis. And I think Dricus Du Plessis would be open to fighting Kamaru Usman as well. But this is a great spot because if Dricus Du Plessis does beat Kamaru Usman, it's a great name on the resume. But also, I would then say he's probably one more fight away from fighting for a title again. But if Kamaru Usman beats Dricus Du Plessis, the former middleweight champion, guys, we are set up. And we are set up for Kamaru Usman versus Khamzat Chimaev, the rematch, a 5-round fight this time, guys. You can sell that fight. You can absolutely sell that fight. Everybody knows how close the first one was. Everybody also claims that Kamaru Usman will win a 5-rounder. Let's put that to the test. I know that Kamaru Usman is now older, so he's not as close to his prime as he was, but you can still sell that fight. And that is a very interesting matchup. Now, would he beat Dricus Du Plessis? I don't know. Probably not, to be honest, but this would let Kamaru Usman get accustomed to the 185-pound division. And if he does beat Dricus, he's going to fight Khamzat Chimaev again. I know it doesn't make all the sense in the world, guys, but I think I cooked right here. Feel free to disagree with me down below, but I think this fight would be a banger for Dricus Du Plessis. Moving on to Lerone Murphy with a beautiful spinning elbow knockout on Aaron Pico. I think he should fight Alexander Volkanovski next. And the reason I say this is because I know I've said in the past that Evloev versus Volk should happen for Madison Square Garden. I still think that should happen, but at this point, I don't think it will because UFC already does not like Movsar. And secondly, he pulled out of his fight with Aaron Pico. And Lerone Murphy, the UFC doesn't necessarily love him either because he's been called boring. He even got booed out of the Apex, but he took this short notice co-main event slot against Aaron Pico, who was not ranked, coming over to the UFC. And he put on a highlight reel knockout, spinning elbow. Oh my God, it was beautiful. It was beautiful, okay? I think that was kind of a stamp on it. The UFC is going to see that highlight reel knockout, and I think it's going to elevate him to fight Volkanovski, to fight for a title. Volkanovski wants Lerone Murphy as well. So I think it either needs to be Movsar Evloev, which I don't think the UFC is going to do, or Lerone Murphy. And I think the UFC will do Lerone Murphy. It's hard to say that he doesn't deserve it. This man's got a win over Josh Emmett and then Aaron Pico, which Pico, the win's not looking great right now. But like I said, he accepted and did the UFC a favor, accepting a short notice co-main event slot with a vicious knockout. I think Lerone versus Volk is the fight to make. Moving on to the final one for the video, Carlos Prates called out Leon Edwards for UFC Rio. I think you just make that fight. Carlos Prates was on a tear until he ran into Ian Gary, he's slick, man. Ian Gary is very slick, but Prates is the real deal. He's proved that time and time again. He has crazy power. And Leon Edwards is on a 2-fight losing streak, getting embarrassed by Bilal Muhammad and also embarrassed by Sean Brady. Now, we're going to give Leon another chance, but he's going to get to fight a striker this time. We're not going to give him a dominant grappler like Brady and Bilal Muhammad. You can fight Carlos Prates, and this is a win-win because Leon's a former champion. He's a big star in the division. And Carlos Prates is also kind of a big star in the division. He's not a superstar by any means, but everybody knows the fighting nerds. Everybody associates Carlos Prates with cigarettes and alcohol and the fighting nerds. So this is a chance. If Carlos Prates co-mains on the Rio card underneath Charles Oliveira and Rafael Fiziev, first of all, it's a banger fight night. That's free, by the way. But Carlos Prates also will have a chance to knock out a former champion, which is going to get him that much closer to a title fight. I think this fight makes all the sense in the world. Prates and MVP were kind of talking about fighting each other. I would rather see a Leon Edwards matchup. If I'm Carlos Prates, if I'm the UFC, you know how tricky of a matchup Michael Venom Page is. I would rather give MVP to a guy like Michael Morales potentially, or maybe a Joaquin Buckley, man. I don't know. Prates versus Leon, I think it's a great idea. But anyway, guys, these are my fights to make after 319. Again, let me know what you agree with. Let me know what you disagree with. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Click the subscribe button if you're new, and turn the post notifications on. You do not want to miss a live stream, guys. I appreciate y'all for tuning in, and we out.